You know what the scariest thing about solitude is? No, not the silence. The scariest thing is when the silence ends. When you've gotten used to an absolute vacuum for hundreds of miles around and suddenly you hear the sound of an engine. My name is Marcus, and for the last 10 years I've worked as a caretaker at the Coyote Peak Station in the Alaska Range System. It's not just a job. It's a sentence I imposed on myself after civilization refused to take me back. But I'm not going to tell you about why I ran away from people. I'm going to tell you about what happened last winter when I realized that humans might no longer be the masters of this planet. It all began in mid-November, when the sun finally said goodbye to this slope until February. The polar night here isn't just darkness. It's a dense, palpable blackness that presses against your eyeballs. My daily routine was simple to the point of idiocy. Check the generators, record the weather data, send it via satellite link to the mainland, and try not to lose my mind. My only companions were the crackling wood in the stove and an old tube receiver that caught nothing but static and occasionally Radio Liberty if the atmosphere was feeling generous. On the 17th day of my winter shift, something broke. At first I thought it was the generator, but the engine was running smoothly. No, the silence had broken. Outside, at a frequency you feel not with your ears but with your teeth, a sound arose. A low, vibrating hum that sent ripples across my mug of coffee. I pulled on 3 layers of clothing and stepped out onto the observation platform. The frost was around -50, a cold sink. I aimed the spotlight beam into the valley. And at that moment, the weather balloon suspended on a cable next to me began to sway, even though there was absolutely no wind. At first, the beam of light just hit a white veil of drifting snow. And then I saw it. In the snow, about 300 meters down the slope, there was a track. I've worked here for 10 years. I know the tracks of everything. A wolf scraping its belly, a rogue bear, a lost skier. This didn't look like anything from the textbooks. Imagine a harrow dragged across the snow, but the teeth of this harrow were arranged chaotically, and each one left behind a perfectly smooth, vitrified furrow a foot deep. The snow hadn't been compacted. It had been vitrified. I climbed down there with a rifle on my shoulder. The silence was so profound that I could hear snowflakes shattering against my beard. I touched the track. My gloved fingers felt not the cold of ice, but warmth. Steam was rising from the glassy furrow. It smelled. The odor was sour like a discharge of static electricity, mixed with the stench of burnt meat. The track stretched from east to west, crossing my territory in a perfectly straight line. It did not go around obstacles. Where a centuries-old spruce stood in the way, a portion of the trunk had simply been annihilated, not cut down. Atomic bonds had been severed, leaving a perfect semicircle in the wood, which crumbled to dust at the touch. That was when I stopped thinking about earthly beasts. I returned to the cabin and tried to call the base. The radio hissed. I twisted the tuning knob, trying to catch anything in the ether, and stumbled upon a frequency that had never existed here before. It wasn't speech. It was a rhythmic tapping, like Morse code, but too fast for a human. I recorded it on my dictaphone. Later, after stretching the recording in my laptop's audio editor, I realized it wasn't chaotic noise. It was a pattern. Between the taps were pauses that repeated with mathematical precision. 3 taps, pause, 7 taps, pause, 11. Prime numbers. Someone or something was transmitting a sequence of prime numbers on a frequency that should have been dead. I didn't sleep that night. I sat staring at the waveform on the screen when the lights in the cabin flickered. The voltage dropped. I looked out the window. The track that passed half a mile from me began to glow. A faint turquoise luminescence snaking along the contours of the terrain, as if lava were flowing there, but cold as liquid nitrogen. And then I saw them. They were standing at the edge of the light cast by my window. There were 3 of them. In my professional vocabulary, there is no word to describe them. Let's put it this way. If a deer tried to evolve into a receiving antenna, but the process got stuck somewhere at the stage of metal and flesh, their bodies were geometric, too many knee joints, and each ended not in a hoof, but in a razor-thin blade vibrating at that same low frequency of the hum. Instead of a head, an asymmetrical set of branching appendages that moved independently of each other, feeling the air like blind fingers. They had no mouths, but they spoke. The sound penetrated directly into the skull, bypassing the ears. It resembled whale song, slowed down 1,000 times. I felt my own lungs trying to resonate with this frequency. It wasn't communication in our understanding. It was an interface. They were scanning me. Images of my own life began flashing before my eyes, not memories but sharp, cold files. My mother, whom I hadn't called in 10 years, a passport page, the molecular structure of hemoglobin. They were digging through my head like a hard drive. I realized that the track in the snow was not a trail of footprints. It was a data collection route. They were taking samples of matter. I snapped out of my stupor only an hour later, lying on the floor by the cooled stove. The creatures were gone, but the hum remained. It became the background of my existence. My sanity slowly gave way to animal terror. I stopped eating. I couldn't swallow a single bite, knowing they could read out all the enzymes from my liver that I was trying to digest. On the 5th day after the visit, I realized I could no longer stay inside the log cabin. It seemed to me that the walls had become permeable, that the X-ray radiation of their gazes was passing through the logs. I took my rifle, the emergency beacon, and headed up toward the old Silver Eye mine. If I got underground, maybe the layer of rock would shield my brain from their signal. The mine smelled of mold and ancient cold. I crawled along the adit, breaking my nails, until I reached a dead end. There, in absolute darkness, I lit my lantern and looked at the wall, and I screamed. The rock was covered in drawings. These were not Native American petroglyphs. These were blueprints, intricate schematics carved with laser precision into the granite. They depicted the orbits of planets that don't exist in our solar system, DNA sequences that twisted into Lichtenberg figures, and a map of the starry sky where, instead of the North Star, some kind of abyss gaped. I moved my flashlight beam further and saw it. A date. Today's date. But the year was carved into the stone in the language of prime numbers. And then it hit me. This is not an invasion. This is maintenance. These beings are not aliens in arcs who arrived yesterday. They have always been here. Coyote Peak wasn't built on an empty spot. It sits on their relay station. We are just a biofilm on their equipment. Humanity evolved under their observation, like mold in a petri dish. And that sound I heard is not the hum of an engine. It's a clock signal, a countdown. I was sitting in this mine when the beacon in my backpack beeped. The satellite had picked up a signal. For the first time in a week of silence, I heard a human voice from the speaker. It was a dispatcher from Anchorage, a bored guy named Jim. "Marcus, goddammit, your instruments have gone crazy. We've got a magnitude 7 earthquake in your sector, how copy?" An earthquake. The ground wasn't shaking. The fabric of reality was vibrating. I grabbed the radio and yelled into the microphone, telling them under no circumstances to send the helicopter, telling them to flee the state, telling them to jam all electronic signals. In response, just Jim's laughter and his words, "Relax, old man. We're flying out for you tomorrow. It's a long winter. Been hitting the hooch?" I threw the radio against the wall. I knew I wouldn't survive until tomorrow. The vitrified tracks began converging on the mine. And right now, as I record this, I see the stone around me beginning to glow with that same turquoise light. They're not coming for me. I'm of no use to them. I'm just dirt clogged in their gears. But the helicopter that's coming tomorrow, it emits so much heat and electricity, it's a perfect power source. I made a mistake. I made contact. I pointed them toward Anchorage. If you hear this recording, do not try to find me. Do not look for the Coyote Peak station. Erase all coordinates from databases. And most importantly, for God's sake, listen to the silence. If you hear a low hum rising from beneath the earth, if your lights start flickering in time with your heartbeat, don't try to decode the signal. Run. Run to where there is no electricity. where there are no radio waves. We have no chance of defeating something that uses prime numbers as a lullaby. We are something beautiful but random, and they are the precise mechanics of eternity. And right now, I hear the rock behind me starting to part, like a camera aperture. I see a light that doesn't cut the eyes, but strokes the brain. They are here, and they want me to deliver a message to you. Silence is permission. We begin defragmentation,